Welcome everybody, it's Unstoppable Stiletzi again, and today is the day. Today is the day that we cover the last Middle East civilization for the upcoming Age of Empires 3 Wars of Liberty Middle East patch. Previously, we went over three civs, the Iranians, the Afghans, and the Uzbeks, which were under the flag of the Persianate/steppe category. So all their sort of units were pretty much kind of the same, their building set and everything. Now we're going to be going over the only outlier, which is the Saudi Arabians, which is the only one in this patch that will fit under the Arab classification. So notice when you see the Saudi Arabians that their buildings may look slightly different. Their common unit roster is going to be a bit different too, outside of artillery, so just wanted to point that out. But otherwise, Saudi Arabians are probably one of the most radical civilizations in terms of their playstyle in this game. All the other civs, as you know, have their own established buildings. They got houses, gunsmith or gunpowder stuff, all that. The Saudi Arabians kind of follow that logic and they kind of don't. They kind of do because, the functionalities of their structures are kind of the same, but the fact is they don't have any structures at all. Well, they have a few, like the Citadel, the Dock, and a few other things. But other than that, they do everything out of caravans. They're a desert nomadic civ to get across the vast expanse of the Arabian desert, as you know. Look at a map, look at the Arabian Peninsula. It's sand, 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 and more sand. It'd be the worst place to live if you're Anakin Skywalker. It's like so coarse and thick that it gets everywhere. It's really bad, so... Saudi Arabians, as a result, are a caravan-based civ with tons of stinky camels. So before we get into the caravan stuff, which will be the primary part of their civ bonuses, we got to look at the cards first, right? So we know what their strategies are, their builds and everything. So let's do that. Here are the cards. So the first one is the Merchant. Merchant deals with villagers, crates, herdables, and the liking. So let's start with that. First card, Two Servants, Infinite. This is good if you plan on being stuck in Age 1 for about 2 shipment cycles, because then you get about 4 villagers out of it. Or, if you're only planning on sending 1 card in Age 1, may as well go with the 3 Servants one here that's a single-use one. I think we went over that debate last week with the Uzbeks, but if you didn't catch last week, all I'm basically saying is the value of either of these cards is only permeable of how many cards you plan on sending. If you plan on getting 2 or 3 shipments out in Age 1 because of the build order, this is going to be your best friend. But if you only want to send 1 card and get to Age 2 very quickly and be super efficient about that, this is going to be your best friend here. You could theoretically combine them and send this one first and then follow it up with this, but to be honest, I would rather you get this first and then follow it up with this or this later. Just saying. Just so you're not cluttering your deck with villager cards and you can put some more valuable stuff in there, as we're going to see. Yeah, likewise in Age 2, this is going to be a great card for you that you should always have. There's going to be a lot of times when you're playing one of these Middle East civs where you're going to be fighting a lot in Age 2 with your gunsmith and your forge, and possibly even a foundry making Zambaraks. So if you're stuck in Age 2 and you really can't afford any madrasa text to age up, probably you're going to be sending this a whole lot to, eventually boost yourself to a point that you can age up, or that you can defend yourself with the proper military. So this is a really critical card for anyone looking to defend their base properly from rushes, to be able to go on the offense, to be able to afford madrasa text and age up. This card will always be a good friend of yours. Yeah. You can include this one if you're not really keen on this one, which I really don't know why you would have issues with this card, but this one is technically a little bit bigger. It gives you 5 villagers. For some people that like to only use single-use villager cards, this is going to be the one that you're going to want to use. That being said, this is clearly more valuable, because unlike Age 1, where there's a bit more controversy of build order of how many cards you're going to send, I can guarantee you're going to be spending at least a good amount of time in Age 2 unless you got a really good fast fortress planned out. So this is normally going to be the better one. And even if you are in Age 3 and you lose a few vills, You could absolutely send this to recover your numbers too. So it has later uses as well, though the strength goes down a little bit because of the numbers and everything. Also, if you do go to age 3 and you want a big boom, go with this card, 8 servants. It's a big batch of villagers, pretty huge one in fact. So if you're someone who's into the fast fortress thing, or you are really behind in economy and somebody's going 2 or 3 town centers ahead of you, this is a good way to catch up a bit. Yeah. Now on to the other cards. So as far as resource crates are concerned with the Saudi Arabians, all of your crates go up to really age 2, but you don't get anything substantial after that. So you get all the food ones, all the wood ones, and all the gold ones. But you don't get 1,000 coin, 1,000 wood, 1,000 food, and then you certainly don't get age 4 ones either. So if you're someone that likes those big boy resource crate cards beyond age 2, Saudis sadly don't deliver in that department for you. But there's some other cool stuff to look at here, namely this card, Aquica. This is about the same as Colbertism, so it's an age 1 food trickle of about 2.1 food per second. If you like the Colbertism card in your build orders with the Europeans in the Legacy game, the vanilla game, this is a good card for you. It'll give you a nice, decent food trickle. Again, potentially what you could do, you could go 3 servants and follow it up with the food trickle. Or you could start with the food trickle and then ship one of these in. There's different ways of doing it. Everybody has their preference. I just prefer to go with the one use of this myself in age 1 and then follow it up with these later on. But you could certainly go with Aquica as well as your first one and then go from there with those. But anyways, let's look at the herdable stuff. So, we got goats. We got a team for goats card in age 1. Totally good if you have herdable heavy allies like the Australians and the Argentines. They're gonna have a livestock pen guaranteed, or even one of the nation states is that decides to turn their landowner's investment into a hunting lodge. If you got one of those allies, this could be a good card for you to consider sending alongside your primary stuff like this, or this. That way everybody's got a little bit of food in their back pocket, and, forbid you get raided or whatever, you can have a little bit of food left over. That's great. Also, we got a infinite 7 goats and 1 bedouin card, and a infinite 15 goats and 1 bedouin card here. This is an age 2 one. Actually, it's an age 1 one, which is even better, and then this is an age 3 one. They're essentially based off of the cards we have in Definitive Edition that would normally give you a homestead wagon to build a livestock pen and some sheep to put on it. Since Middle East obviously doesn't get a livestock pen building at all, they get some sort of nomad unit to fatten up the animals around them. This card will send you a Bedouin instead. One thing to note is the Bedouins for the Saudi Arabians do retain the house property of the Bedouins in the Egyptian civ. So theoretically, shipping this card will grant you 10 population with that Bedouin, which is kind of nice. And since, the Mahallas at the Middle East also have all those sort of capital type technologies, they'll also let you research those as well, on top of calling your emergency units. So technically, a Bedouin holds a lot of value for you. On top of the Bedouin, of course, being a decent combat unit too that you can attack with. Just be aware, since it is also your house, that if the Bedouin dies, you might die. Just be careful of that. Yeah. And there is a big boy 20 goat card here in age 3 as well, if that's something that you're really interested in. Beyond that, though, we got some really cool cards here. We got the Ibn Am. Bedouins strengthen each other. So what this basically does is, all your Bedouins, that being the nomads that come for free out of your citadels, will boost each other up with an HP aura. So the more Bedouins you got closely packed together, like sardines, the more HP they're going to have as a collective. So that's quite nice, because it means Bedouins, they're not going to die as fast. That makes it a lot less risky to go into battles with them. So you can essentially rush villagers with them, potentially. You can fight skirms with them. You can fight artillery, and not have to worry so much that, hey, I'm going to lose all my houses and then end up with like 10 population and then go GG. You don't want that. This is an essential card for every Saudi Arabian deck for that reason, because believe it or not, you're going to need to use your Bedouins in combat a lot as the Saudi Arabians. That's just the way that they're set up. Saudi Arabians benefit from a lot of aggro and pressure, and the Bedouins are a key part of that. So you got to make sure that you use an Ibn Am to keep their HP up so they don't die so easily. If you don't have this card in your deck, you're basically toast. We got another one down here called Dila. Doubles the range of Bedouin livestock fattening aura, plus 4 goats. Now, this is one that I haven't looked too much into yet, but this one is only going to be good if you plan on not wanting to control your nomad Bedouin so much. What do I mean by that? Essentially, if you're going to be moving around with your Bedouins a lot as part of your offensive strategy, this essentially ensures that the herdables that you're keeping near your Bedouins don't accidentally get converted by the enemy when you're attacking them. This could potentially be a good lifesaver card. It might even potentially be as important as Ibn Am for a very different reason. This one securing your Bedouins' lives to protect your housing space, and this one essentially protecting your herdables from being captured while you're doing your offensive maneuvers. So theoretically, this could be just as important as this. Who knows? Obviously, the inclusion of 4 goats as well gives you a bit of a food incentive to send it as well. So yeah, we'll have to see how often this is used, because it could potentially be a very valuable card depending on what sort of stuff you need to do with your Bedouins, you know. And obviously, this is a very optimized card, because clearly this card is making the assumption that you're going to really take your herdable fattening rate seriously and, you know, make sure that the herdables are not left alone for too long without fattening. And yeah, it's one of those things for really advanced players to include in the calculus of their strategy. So yeah, I like the card. I think it has some use. We'll see. We got some Saluki cards here. We got the Infinite 3 Saluki in Age 1, 5 Salukis in Age 2, and then in 6 we have 10. We got the big Saluki ship in here. Big insane one on this one for Age 3, is it? Yeah. As you know, with these cards here, these Saluki cards, they also boost the stats of the Salukis by different amounts. This one will boost the Salukis by 30%. This one will boost them by 50%. If you send this again and again, theoretically, your Saluki dogs will become stronger and stronger and could potentially become a real good military asset 20 or 30 times down the road. You never know. And that, again, that's something we've never really experimented with too much, and we probably should, but just wanted to point that out there. Yeah. And speaking of which, let's look at the Explorer cards here. First one is Qutab at-Tawhid. Improves your Sheikh in combat, gives him an aura that decreases nearby enemies' hit points, and enables Salukis to be trained from him, and gives you a free Saluki, in fact. So this one essentially allows your Explorer to weaken your enemy's HP stats when he's near them. That could be pretty big, you know. And again, I told you about how you're constantly going to be fighting with Bedouins and trying to rush your opponent as the Saudi Arabians. They almost play like Egypt, and that's sort of the idea, except they're a little bit more centralized. As you know, with the Egypt Civ that we currently got, they have a town center caravan. They're totally mobilized. The Saudi Arabians, they still got the citadels, and then they just train caravans from them, and then you move them out from the main node, basically, to go do havoc. I think in that sense, because Saudi Arabians are very aggressive by nature in their gameplay, a card like this could be very useful to you. It'll ensure that your Bedouins can down targets faster and get out before trouble arrives. If Bedouin, forbid, has to fight a pikeman or something, maybe give some better odds of doing so safely. Who knows? Yeah. And remember, your Sheikh is also a Middle Eastern explorer, so he does have a favored unit, which is the Jamal, which we'll see later. So theoretically, any card that makes him stronger is going to make him a better combatant as well, since he does have military unit properties beyond just his explorer stuff. Thus, he is sort of like a stronger Jamal with more HP and stuff. So we'll see that a bit later. Bisht. Bisht. You have to make sure you pronounce that right, otherwise, Google's will think I'm saying something else. Imams increase the gather rates of nearby servants. So this is a card we see with other civs like the Haitians and so forth, where the priest sort of has a little aura and the villagers gather bear around it, which I think is pretty useful. I don't know how good it is, how optimized it is, so you're going to have to play with that yourself and see, okay, maybe this is something worth getting, maybe not, who knows. I think if you're really big into healers and healing your army and stuff, it might be good to set them up somewhere and just boost your farming and stuff a bit, but who knows, yeah. Now on to the fun stuff, the Warlord. So all the military stuff of our Civ here. And boy, do we have a lot to cover. So this is our first unit here, the Guzat or the Ghazi. This is essentially a coyote runner that the Arab Middle East Civs get access to, not the Persianate ones. The Persianate ones, as you saw, for the most part have all unique scout units, you know. The Uzbeks had the Jigit, the Persians had the Nizam Atli, the Afghans had the Dawat Talab. In the case of the Arab Civs do have a common scout unit. It's called the Guzat or the Ghazi. It serves all the functions of a scout unit, so it can fight skirmishers, it can fight artillery and archers, but this one is more specialized in raiding because his combat stats are a little weak, on the weaker side, I'll be honest. They're not that tough, but when it comes to raiding, they can destroy whole hunts, whole mining operations, whole tree lines. They got multipliers against vills, so they're just really good at hunting vills down. So basically, that's what you would use them for. Obviously, the 6 Guzak card here in H2 is a great one if you want to start the game with a raid. Maybe somebody hasn't done their hunt properly and you want to wipe out their entire hunt perhaps, or at least a good fraction of it. This is a great start, you know. Likewise, we have an H3 card of 10 Guzats, and then we have a 17 Guzat card for H4. And by the way, this text is the same as this one, so the devs are going to have to fix that one. Just a bit of a head note for them. But otherwise, pretty much, I would say between the three of these, this is going to be probably your most important one, because this one's right out of the gate, again in H2, and potentially before your ally, or I should say your enemy, has any sort of military to counteract them. The Ghazis are best used for raiding and cutting into villagers where they were basically unprotected by military. So what a better time to do it than the start of the game when there's no protection, right? I would say these ones are kind of useless, though, in real application. Mainly because the Ghazi itself is not a great unit warrior-wise. And I feel like if you're doing your economy right as the Saudi Arabians, you probably don't even need to ever ship these guys in because you theoretically can afford them. Because they're one of the more affordable trash units that the Saudi Arabians get alongside the Mutawa, as we'll see a bit later. So for me personally, this one's the only one I'm interested in for the shock factor at the start of the game. The rest of them I could go without personally. This card, Orda. Infantry moves 10% faster. Kind of similar to some other cards other civs get. I think with the first one ever being the Hadashani with their related card like that that's more of a team one. But I think in general it's an okay card. Helps a bit with mobility. Obviously, as you move up in the ELO ladders, mobility of your units matters a little bit more because it's more permeant of your micro and stuff. So I'm not going to say it's good. I'm not going to say it's bad. It just matters more or less how skilled you are as a player and how good you can use micro. If you're a good microer, movement speed is a really good stat to have. So that's what I'm going to count that on. And since it's the infantry tag that's getting the speed change, it means that these Ghazi would not be benefited from it since they're a shock unit. I want to make that very clear. So if you're thinking, hey, it's Arda, it's going to help my Ghazis get in and out faster to raid. No, it won't, unless there's a secondary effect that's not listed here. Just wanted to point that out. Since it's the infantry tag, it's only going to affect like muskets, skirms, and spearmen. It's not going to affect things like the Ghazi, which have the shock cavalry tag, being a foot shock unit. So these guys, unless there's another effect that's not listed here, are not affected by this. And obviously a dev can confirm or deny my claim as well. But yeah. Alright, now we're moving on to the first unique unit of the Saudi Arabians, which would be the Jamalun, or the Jamal. These guys, these are Age of Empires 2 camels. So, camel cavalry, the counter's cavalry. That's what these are. Essentially, they're a cavalry unit that has a lance riding a camel, and they have multipliers against cavalry. So, yeah, from an Age of Empires 2 or Age of Empires 1 context, they would just be the camel riders that you're used to in those games, in terms of their function and purpose. In terms of Wars of Liberty World, they're essentially the same as the Infernales that the Argentines get, or the ultimate unit that the Dutch get from their stable that has the multipliers against the shock unit. So what does that mean? It means that the Jamal is not a scout unit, nor an assault unit, nor a maneuver unit. It's a classless cavalry unit that has hand armor. So these guys are only really to be used against cavalry units. You really don't want to use them for anything else. They can sometimes be used against skirmishers and artillery with the right numbers, but obviously since they don't have pierce armor, it makes it a little bit easier for skirmishers to shoot them, especially since they lack the scout and assault tags, which, you know, skirmishers normally have a mouse against. So unless you're fighting naval infantry, or trying to withstand, I think, the grenade throw of a grenadier infantry, these Jamalun are going to have very little protection from range attacks. So just be aware of that, you know. For civs that are very cavalry heavy, like Paraguay, for instance, it has a ton of shock units that they get for free. Jamalun are going to be great. For civs that don't use cavalry at all, they just use a lot of muskets and skirms. Obviously, useless dud that you rarely ever want to use. Just saying. Now, as far as the cards you get, this is going to be a very reliable card if you're stuck in Age 3, because you can send it again and again. If you don't plan on sending these guys a lot, you can go with the 6th shipment here, which is a little bit bigger. You do get an Age 4 shipment of 8 Jamalun as well, so that's great. Now, as far as upgrades is concerned, they do get some upgrade cards here. You got Azagaya. Azagaya essentially arms your Jamalun with long lances, giving a small range to their range attacks. So yeah, basically this card takes the unit itself, which is normally pretty good, right? Because it's good at countering all sorts of hand cavalry, even range cavalry, like, you know, maneuver class, mounted skirms, all that, and gives it a little extra range and reach with its spear. So now it can essentially hit dragoons from a longer range, which could potentially be really good for micro. Because now your enemy has to be twice as careful when dealing with the Jamalun, because instead of waiting for them to get very close to them and then pulling back to shoot at the Jamalun attacking them, now they have to worry that the Jamalun is going to be able to hit them from a farther distance and force you to maneuver even more frequently, which could be annoying. And obviously this will mean that the Jamalun can attack a bit nicer when it comes to getting around buildings and stuff, which I think is pretty nice. Once you add range onto any unit, it makes micro a lot easier, because there's less chance that they're going to have to collide with other units and bounce off of them to reach the target. So I think this is very effective. In any sword deck that you plan on using Jamalun in, this is a must include. It takes it from a normal Infernale type cavalry and it turns it into a real combatant that can hit from a pretty far range compared to what a melee cav normally does. So I think honestly, all things considered, include this one. So far I've said You need this, and you also need this for military cards. Yeah. Further down, we got Sack of Karbala. Sack of Karbala takes the Jamal, the Mutawa, and the Ilkwan and increases their siege by 50%. So, those are essentially all three of the unique units that the Saudis get is the Jamalun, the Mutawin, and the Ilkwan. So essentially takes all your unique units and gives them like 50% siege. Kind of similar to the Ransack card of the Russians, but instead of dealing with blockhouse infantry, this deals with the unique units. Honestly, good card. As I've said before, Saudi Arabians are very based on aggression, getting caravans out and sticking them just about anywhere and attacking your opponents. This just makes the sieging part a lot easier, honestly. You know, some of your units are kind of paper thin, especially the Mutawa and the Ilkwan when it comes to their siege attacks. So honestly, this could be a very important includes as well. Because as you get later in the game and you're trying to swarm your enemy with a lot of this paper thin trash, getting the siege up to 50% is a pretty good improvement, honestly. Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So I like this one. Moving on, we got a common unit for the Arab Middle East civs, which is called the Fursan or the Faris, or the Faris, or the Fursan. These are assault cavalry, and basically these guys have a charge attack where they do a little bit more damage than normal, but otherwise they're just a pretty normal assault cavalry with a shield and a spear. Yeah, so what does assault cavalry mean again? Basically, it's what we would call heavy cavalry. It's got more HP, sometimes a bit more attack. It always has like 30-40% hand armor, so it's really good for fighting in melee, particularly against heavy infantry, which most cavalry in melee is not that good against. These guys can somewhat deal with it. So if you're looking to fight some sort of battle against a few muskets and you need to use a mounted unit, better let it be a Fursan than a Jamal, for instance, or a Ghazi. Yeah. So as far as your options, you got a infinite 4 Fursan option at age 4, a 5 for Falis or Fursan option in age 4 as well, and then you have just a simple 3 Fursan option in age 3. So if you're going for a fast fortress of any kind, this could be a really good card for you because it gives you a good heavy cavalry that you can use. If you're looking at late game, maybe you like the Falis a lot, go with this card. I would say probably never use this, just go with this one so it has more late game application to it. Just saying. Moving along to upgrades, we got Team Hijra El Matayar. Assault unit speed increased by 15%. This one is a team card, so it does affect the whole team. Again, you're going to have to consult with your friends that you're going to be playing with on this one. If your friends are going to be using a lot of civs that are very assault unit heavy, like say a Latin American culture where they get 2 or 3 assault units potentially per civ. If you're like someone who's got an NS ally that plans on spamming our guards with Bulgaria or something, yeah, I think this all depends on coordination. I would say in a 1v1, probably a horrible card because, well, what does it affect? It would affect your Faris, obviously, in sort of the mid game, and then in the super late game, it would theoretically affect your tanks, which also had the assault unit tag. So, principally, I think in 1v1 it's garbage. In a team game, it can be good depending on what your team strategy is and what units they like. If you got a lot of teammates that use the Skoltas, Cuirassiers, Mosquiteros, Zouaves, it could be a big value card based on that, but otherwise I would say, meh. Alright. Moving on to some others though. We got this card here. Mubasha. Fursan decrease the rate of fire of nearby enemies. Enables Mubasha action. So basically the Faris, when they're battling enemies, will decrease their attack movement. So you'll notice that it takes longer for musketeers to battle with their bayonets. It'll take longer for nearby units to shoot their rifles or their bows. Essentially, this plays into the strength of the Florsan of the Felice's combat ability. So, as I said before, these units here, we call the Florsan, as well as any assault units in general, are good at dealing with heavy infantry. You know, groups of pikemen, groups of muskets. This, I feel like, plays really well into that because not only do you have the hand armor protecting your assault unit from the multiplied melee attacks of the bayonets and the spears, but this ensures that they're attacking slower too. So that delivery of damage to your unit is going to end up being slower and slower, essentially giving your assault units more time to do their job and survive. So I think honestly, if you like the assault unit strategy a lot, absolutely include this. Absolutely. Is it essential every game? Probably not, but if you're going to use the Felice assault unit, include it. I think it's going to be really rewarding for you. And now we got a new card here called Kohilan Stallion. Horse cavalry have more hit points. So, very, very important. It only affects horse cavalry. So, it affects the Felice and it affects the Schwarta, which is a horse-mounted dragoon. So it affects the dragoon and it affects the assault unit. So 2 units in your roster. And also, if you deal with the Royal Court later and want to ship in some of the Ottoman delis, it'll benefit them as well. And it'll also benefit any horse-based mercenaries that you got. And it'll affect, I believe, the Agid native that you can ship in as well. So there is a good variety of horse units that you can get as the Saudi Arabians one way or another that benefits from this card. So I would say if you like cavalry, go with it. Just be aware that it won't benefit the Jamals. It'll only benefit your assault cav and your maneuver unit and a few other things too. So just be aware of that. But other than that, good stuff. Alright, so now we move on to another unique year of the Saudi Arabians, which is the Mutawa or the Mutawin. These guys, Wahhabist skirmisher, they're Strelets. They're unstoppable Streletzes, but they're from Saudi Arabia. Big difference, their stats are based off of crossbowman stats instead of skirmisher stats. What does that mean? That means that cost-wise, I believe they are... I can't recall if they're cheaper than a Strelet, but they're kind of in the same ballpark. They are a little bit weaker with the smaller multipliers, but that being said, they're more massable because you're going to be able to train these guys a lot faster than you could Strelet blocks with the Russians. Mainly because you don't have block training as the Saudi Arabians, so you train them one by one. It's pretty easy for you to get to your gunsmith caravan and be able to tap in one of these guys into your queue and then fill it up later as needed, depending on how many you need. So honestly, Mutawin's going to be really your best spam unit that you're going to use, is the Saudi Arabians. More often than not, I find once you run out of the gold for a while, you're going to rely a lot on the Guzat to fight the archers, and then the Mutawa to fight the muskets. And then it's the heavy cavalry and stuff that kind of gives you a bit of trouble there. So, yeah, you'll have to think of some creative ways to deal with that, but I'm sure you will probably, since you do get some okay counter cav, as you'll see a bit later. Of course, the Jamal, also the Jundi, the Shurata, even the Ilkwan. Yeah. So what options do we have for the Mutawin shipments? You got a 38 shipment in age 4, 20 shipment in age 3, an infinite 16-1 in age 3, and then you get a 12 shipment in age 2. I think the age 2 one, totally reliable. It's a nice big stack of early skirms you can use to defend against a musket rush. Totally respect it. I think in age 3, honestly, I think this is pretty good. You can send it again and again if you run into trouble and you need some help against muskets. This one you could use. I just prefer this one because it has more late game application. Because if you need it again and again, it's there for you. This one I do recommend for a very different reason. But it's going to rely you to have probably some trading posts or some other way to get XP, as we're going to see. There is a card later on that I think this will be very good for, but on its own, I think, yeah, it's okay, but there is one strategy for the Saudi Arabians where this becomes really good. So yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit there. As far as combat cards is concerned, here we look at the first ones, Wahhabi Attack and Wahhabi Combat. So this benefits the Mutawin and the Jamalun. So Jamals and Mutawa get benefited by this. So essentially, it benefits your mounted counter cavalry and it benefits your dismounted skirmishers. So honestly, some of your key units is the Saudi Arabian, so I would say for sure always include these. No doubt about it. And now on to some very important cards related to these guys. First one is going to be Mutasib. Mutasib sets it up so market technologies provide 2 free Mutawin when you research them. So what does that mean? So your hunting dog, steel trap, log flume, circular saw, placer mine, your villager upgrades, all of those will give you 2 free skirmishers now. Quite good, right? Well, not super good, because as I said before, these guys are kind of trash units. They're really weak. They're kind of on level with Strelets. That being said, though, if you do send this in Age 1, you can potentially get some Mutawin in Age 1 before you even get to Age 2, which technically gives you a bit of military early on to maybe raid your opponent, maybe help with the Treasure Guardian. It gives you a little bit more boots on the ground to start doing some combat. So I do like this one. And certainly when you're in a pickle and you're trying to upgrade your market and stuff to get ahead in the economy, it gives you a little bit of a return reward, saying, okay, invest in your economy, but don't worry, we're going to give you some extra weak, cheap infantry so you don't die in the process of, making that investment. So I think it's pretty good for that sense. And now this is a very, very, very important card here. A very important one, as you're going to see later. Wadi al-Ajman. Oasis can now be assigned to spawn Mutawin instead of bushes. So, Saudi Arabians work a bit differently than the Persianates do. All the Persianates we've seen have a building called the Fountain, where they get their food and their gold bushes, right, for late game economy. The Saudi Arabians, since they're a desert-based culture, don't have free-flowing fountains all over the desert, right? So where do you get water if you're stuck in the desert? An oasis, right? A little patch of water deep in the desert that you can, give some water to yourself and your camel. So essentially the way Saudi Arabians work with their citadels is they build these oasis annexes around them, and you can have up to 2 per citadel, where you'll be able to make your food and your gold bushes from. But this card, what it ends up doing is it says, okay, if you have all the food bushes that you need, you have all the gold bushes that you need, now you can opt to configure it to make free Matawa for you, so free weak skirmishers. So that alone is a pretty good thing. And I've honestly used it a number of times. And I think it's great. Once I get to mid-game, and if I can invest in a bunch of citadels, this gives me a pretty good backbone army that I never run out of, really. So it doesn't matter how good the enemy's economy is, I can always guarantee that at least I have a skirmisher backbone army ready to go. And then I can take all my resources and invest it into other stuff, like maybe Jundi for cavalry. Maybe I can make some Zambaraks. Maybe I can make some Fari. I can really make whatever I need. And this essentially says you no longer have to burn through food and wood to make a ton of Mutawas, because now you can use your oasis to do that. But going back to the point of this card, there actually is a second reason, or a build rather, where this becomes really, really good, as you're going to see. So we'll get to that rather soon. We just have to get through a few more cards here, and then we should be ready for that. The Jundi. These are just musketeers. They're Arab musketeers. So the Jundi or the Junud, these are good if you run into Hussars or something. Now, you're going to see these guys with really any Arab classified Middle East civ. So Saudi Arabians, potentially Egyptians, potentially, Egyptians in the future, Omani, crucial states. They would potentially have the Jundi as their infantry. Stats wise, it's basically the same as the Gallego stats right now for the Latin American immigrants. So if you like the Gallego, it's been a pretty good musket, to be honest. That's what these guys are. So they're not really lacking in anything. I think they do rather well in their combat. And then they do get some combat cards here. Hadir, hit points. And then they get Hadir combat. The Hadir cards will boost the Jundi and they'll also boost the Falis or the Fursan. So these essentially helps your mounted pikeman and your skirmisher unit, your early skirm unit, and these helps your musket and your assault cavalry. So pretty good reach there. Good variety. Yeah. We do have some shipments of shortas. These are your Arab dragoons, so good against assault units and artillery. Obviously, if you like including dragoon cards in your deck, this is a must includes. This one, not so much. I would say probably this one is good if you're going to go age 3. I don't really recommend you include age 4 cards like that, though. Just saying. Now, the last unique unit of the Saudi Arabians, the Ikhwan. It's an ultimate unit, a maneuver cavalry armed with sword and rifle, good against all shock units. So. I've told you today that the Saudi Arabians have the Jamal, which is a mounted pikeman, right? That you can extend the range of a bit with this card here, the Zagia. Now, this guy here, the Ilkwan, he's essentially a dragoon that counters all assault units, all cavalry units. So at any unit that has the shock tag, it will counter them. It will counter Macheteros. It will counter Hussars. It will counter Cazador Montados, bicycle infantry. It will counter dragoons, other dragoons. So anything that has a shock tag, it has multipliers against. So if you're looking for chasing down shock units, these guys are going to be the choice. If you want to go toe-to-toe with maybe some dragoons or mounted skirms, these guys will be equipped for that because they'll have multipliers to do that. Yeah. So now comes the fun stuff. The 2 cards that I think really matter for the Saudi Arabians. So this is the first one. Banu Atoigba. Ilkwan take no population space. That is very powerful indeed. So basically, the only thing that's going to hold you back is the build limit, no longer the pop space. It essentially almost becomes like a native warrior almost. That is very big. That is very, very big. Very big. Very big. That's actually quite insane because now you don't have to worry about putting pop space for these guys anymore. They're more or less in a support unit along the rest of your army. I think that's pretty good. You know why it's pretty good? Because of this. Ilkwan man ata Allah. Transforms all your Mutawin into Ilkwan. That is, and you know why that's serious? Because, look, if you get Wadi El Ajman, you can get free Mutawin up to almost like 100, 120 pop, right? Without even paying a cent. And then you can ship this in as you approach the 200 pop, get 38 Mutawin on top of that. And then you send this, guess what? Now you have like 150, 160 dragoons pop free in your army. And then you can train the rest of these guys to back them up. You can make some Ghazi. You can make some Fursan. You can make some Jundi, Mutawa. You can make some Zams. You can make some Mudafas or Mortars. This is a death trap to throw your opponent into. And if you've watched my Saudi Arabian battles, this is how I always take out the opponent with this card. It's a deadly card. And if you combine it with this, and maybe this, or maybe this, you're in great shape. You're in great shape. Even the best would be you start with this, ship this in at the end, and then do all the market text after this, and then send this. That would be the scariest, but it would be the most time consuming. But basically, you're looking at having like 100 to 150, 160 dragoons that don't even count against your population running around the map with anything else you decide to make, whether it's artillery, assault cav, you name it. That is some good stuff right there. That's essentially how Saudi Arabians play. They start very aggressive at the start with the Ghazi, the Mutawa, maybe some Jundi or Jamals, and then they try to survive to the point that they can get multiple citadels to get this and make it worthy, and then they execute them with this and this, both of these. You gotta include this and this together, and this and this. These four. This is a deadly build order to play Saudi Arabians. Yeah, absolutely. All right, beyond that, let's look at some support cards you get. You get the Kuwaiti contingent. It comes with 5 Ghazi, 11 Jundi, and a Midfa. So you get 1 cannon to fight infantry. You get a couple of Jundi, about 11 exact, to fight Cav. And then you get a little frontal of Ghazi, too, to potentially raid with, maybe help fight some of the skirmishers with. So I think, the Kuwaiti contingent is okay. Let's see what the next one is. The next one is the Qatari contingent. Ships an assorted Arabic army of Kalasis, Shwartas, and Zamabiks. Pretty good. So you get 5 Kalasis, 6 Shwartas, and 2 Zambaraks. Very solid. And then you get one last one here. The Baharna contingent. Ships a assorted Arabic army of Kalasis, Fursan, and Mortar. So that's pretty solid, too. Yep. And now we move on to the artillery. So these are going to be age 4 only for the Zambaraks. Essentially, again, they're mounted Abyss gunners. That's really all you need to know about them. The midfoot cards, I like this one because it can be used again and again. However, you do have a stronger 3 shipment one if you want it. You do have a beefy H4 one of 5 Midfa as well. As far as mortars, you get an H3 shipment of 2 mortars if you need to do some siege. You also get a Team 2 mortar card too if you want to do that. So there you go. Notice how these mortars though can attack units, and they have multipliers against artillery. So they're more or less sort of like a stronger Chinese hand mortar, if anything. Yeah, just be aware of that. So now we're looking at more cards here. We got the native allegiances. Natives train 30% faster. Good if you like native pushes. Especially if you're on Alaska with the Nuka Clubmen, something like that. You got Baya. You get a shipment of minor allied warriors from each allied site. So let's say you got 3 different natives that you have on the map. This can be very valuable since it'll give you a pretty nice free army of stuff to rush in with. Then we got dinar here, or jizya. Oh, jizya. The jizya tax. You get 500 coin from each native that you're allied with. Pretty good. You get Dar al-Salam. Allied troopers cost less food and wood, but extra coin. This can be kind of good if you depend on... Well, theoretically, this is great if you're playing late game because, as you know, trees are the one resource on the map that you don't get to make more of, obviously. You can make mills, you can make plantations, but you can't make wood farms. So, if you want to use natives throughout the game, this can theoretically be a good late game card. As far as an early game card, it depends on what your map control is regarding mines. Yes, it could potentially be good if you have a mine right in front of your town center or 2 that you can eat up very quickly. So yeah, I'm going to say that's a good one. Advanced Caravanserai. Caravanserai have more hit points and support more population. So 15 pop is added to its thingy, 50% more HP. As you know, Middle Easterners don't get normal trading posts, they get caravanserais. They start out with a range attack, thus they're a more expensive building, but that means that now, as far as their advanced card is concerned, it can focus on, giving it some population housing space too. I think in this situation, caravanserais with extra pop can be very good insurance for the Saudi Arabians because, as I said before, you're going to be rushing people with your nomad Bedouins that provide your housing space. So if they die, it could potentially be these population packed caravanserais that you might be able to build that essentially saves you from losing all of your pop space. So I think in some situations, depending on what the map is, this could be a lifesaver just for the Saudi Arabians. Also, you get kinship, just like Blood Brothers, gets the veteran and guard upgrades on the natives. As far as training is concerned, you get all three of your training units. You got Ansar for the infantry training speed, for Yosia for the cavalry, and then you get Alchemy for the artillery. Quite good. For Citadels, you get about 3 Citadel cards. So you get the Salwa Citadel in H3. You get the Hail Citadel in H3. And then you got the Sahud Citadel in H4. So, the only thing we really need to explain beyond the normal effect. So, as you know at this point, these cards will bump up your Citadel build limit by 1, and then give you a wagon to build that Citadel with. So, what these cards do in addition to the normal effect is, since the Saudi Arabians have Oasis Annex around their Citadel instead of the Fountain functionality, what these do is they will also bump up the Oasis build limit, obviously, so that you can essentially put 2 more Oasis on the new Citadel. So not only are you gaining a +1 build limit in the Citadel itself, you're gaining a +2 build limit in Oases as well. So you can essentially have the mapping of 2 Oases to 1 Citadel ratio be maintained. So that's good. Also here we have the Hayil Citadel. Yep, it's the same one. So basically what ends up happening is, because I want to explain this card here, Wadi El Ajman again. So what I said, this was very essential because it gave you free skirmishers over time, right? So think of this. Let's say you get Salwa, Hail, and Sahud. That's 3 Citadels, which means 6 Oases. You get the Citadel you start the game with. That's 8 Oasis or 8 Oases. And then obviously you get a +1 build limit to Citadel in H3. What that means 2 more Oases. So total with Saudi Arabia, you can have up to 10 Oasis on the map, which means 10 queues of 1 Mutawa going on at the same time. So it's essentially turned Saudi Arabia into sort of a semi-Paraguay, to the point that you'll get so many Mutawas that you'll be able to rush your opponent all the time with them. And then eventually you'll get to do this, and then have an infinite army of Dragoons that counter all shock units out there to shred everything, and then fill in the void with more of these guys to fight the muskets. So, yeah, that's pretty good. And then, obviously, you can throw in Sack of Karbala, so all that messiness of units that you did can siege pretty well, too. So, yeah, some Saudi Arabia tactics for you to try. We do have some more Saudi Arabia specific cards here, like Bait al-Shar. Bedouins support more pop. They'll support 15 pop instead of 10. Another good insurance policy card for your strategy, since if you lose a Bedouin, the other ones will back you up a bit better now. So you're essentially, preserving more of your population by going into those risky combat situations with your Bedouins. Just saying. Al-Hida, caravans and wagons are trained extremely fast. This one ends up becoming an insurance policy to your Bedouin pop space too, because essentially it keeps this going more. So if you do lose it and you need to retrain, which you are allowed to do with the Saudi Arabians, you can retrain Bedouins. It allows you to do so very quickly. It also benefits you with attacking. Because now you can train your gunsmith caravans faster. You can train your forge ones faster. Your foundries, your royal court, your hookah lounge. All those can come out faster. So that's good. As far as defense is concerned, we got Jihad. So Ijali and Bushadin no longer lose hit points over time. And then the Vistabilia. Servant, Ijali, and Mushadin attack, range, and line of sight increase. So it benefits your emergency units and your vills. And one last one here. Agal. Military units provide more bounty. So the more military that you train, the more XP that you're going to get now, which is quite nice. We got Advanced Madrasa. Madrasa are cheaper and have more hit points. So this will cheapen and strengthen your Madrasa caravan. Since you don't have a Madrasa, you have a Madrasa caravan. So just point that out. Advanced Oasis. Oases are cheaper and spawn bushes faster. Enables coffee bushes one age earlier. This one's pretty good since essentially it plays into this. Yeah, so let's say you want to put down like 6 to 8 oases very quickly so you can start spamming Mutaween. You really want to start with this first because it makes it super cheap to get them all. And then when you want to break off from the Mutawa queues and actually get some bushes down to eat and stuff, it lets you do that faster. Yeah. I think in general, playing around the Oasis functionality of the Saudi Arabians is going to be your best way to win. So, Advanced Oasis combined with all the aforementioned this. You know I've said that. I don't have to explain it, but you get the idea. Also, you do get Advanced Gunsmith, so you do actually get to put on 2 extra range onto your Mutaween with the Theory of Mael Advanced Tech. That's good. And then you also get the card as well to boost the bayonet attack on your Jundi as well, so that's good too. So I mean, yeah, honestly, this is a good card to always include because Mutaween is going to be like your backbone unit more often than not. And as I said before, these poor guys are, sort of like Strelek crossbowmen, so they're not that strong at all. So the least you can do for the guys is put on 2 additional range so that they can behave a little bit more of a kiting unit. That's one thing I will say. Now we move on to some other cards that they got here. Torbia. Madrasa technologies are cheaper. So 10% cheaper across the board for all of them. Majidis Madrasa Technologies research faster. That can always be good. Nadha enables 1 extra madrasa to be built plus a madrasa wagon. So in this situation, it would give you a madrasa caravan for free since you don't have buildings. You would just get an additional caravan shipped to you. So you could have 2 of them instead of 1. That way you can actually queue up multiple madrasa techs at the same time, which could optimize your build potentially. I mean, I don't think immediately you're going to be able to do that, but as you get down the road and maybe eat a lot of date bushes and coffee bushes for the gold, then you might be able to pull that off. Just saying. Then we get a Great Game and Spear of Influence. This is good if you're using Royal Court units. This one allows the courtiers to get more units. And this one sets up so the mission shipments arrive instantly and the units are stronger, which is important if you're going to send foreign units. Now we're on to the Scholar. These are the economic ones. So you got Rendering Plan for Fishing. Pretty good if you're going to be doing a fish boom of some kind. You don't get your Schooners type card though, unfortunately, so that's kind of sad. So you're only going to get a bit of a gather raid boost, which is... You got Calligraphy for Servant and Wagon build speed. And then you get the toyol for the cost and build time of your fountains, livestock pens, and equivalent structures. I believe this will cheapen your oasis, and it might cheapen your bedouin, but I would have to ask the devs about that because theoretically your bedouins are your livestock pens, so this should theoretically cheapen them, cheapen their food costs. And then it should also cheapen the cost of your oasis annex around the citadel too. So maybe this could either replace this or they could be combined together for something truly fear invoking. Who knows? Carpentry and Intosia are your woodshop techs for age 1 respectively. Your mining ones, you get Dinar for age 1. Age 2 you got your Nielo. And then age 3 you get your Waka. Right? Since you are a very nomadic pastoral civ as the Saudi Arabians living in the desert, you do get all the herdable cards for the millies. You get dromedary ranching, so you can make dromedary camels from your nomads or your Bedouins. Basically, they have the food value of a cow, whereas the goats are obviously going to be smaller in food. So if you need a lot of food from a herbal, get this one so you can have big beefy camels to eat. Nice roasted Dubai camel. Nomadic pastoralism, this sets it up so the herbals actually fatten a lot faster if you have a nearby Bedouin fattening them up. That's good. That ore will boost them up by 60% now, which is better than the normal one. And then, of course, Eid Kurban. So when it's time to actually start eating your camels and your goats, you'll be able to do it 300% faster. So less villagers on to the task, It's quite good. For the rest of the stuff, we got Furrier for early game hunting and berries. As far as late game food, we get date syrup in age 1, and then these sherbet in age 2. We don't get the refrigeration equivalent in age 3 though, so just be aware of that. But we get all the gold ones. We got poppy tears for age 1, coffee grinder for age 2, and then for age 3 we got the embroidery one here. So we get all 3 of those. We also get this card too. Adala. Coffee bushes contain more coin. So essentially, for every coffee bush that you get from your oasis, they're going to have more coin in them, which means that they last longer, which means potentially you can send more Matawin with this Wadi El Ajman right here. So again, it all sort of circle jerks back to that, basically, I think. At least for now. So now we got Navy, we got 1 Sambuk, infinite here. Well, at least it says, yep, it is an infinite card. 2 Sambuks. These are your light ships, and then you got your heavy ship, the Bagla, age 3. And a boom in age 4. Siege ship, team, 1 boom for everybody. Coastal defenses team, that's good, obviously, if you're being amphibious assaulted. You do get some Kalasi shipments here, some of your naval guys, pretty much, yep. Here they are. Now, you do get the Vickers purchase. So what the Vickers purchase does, it ships you 3 Gatling camels and enables you to train them from the hookah lounges. So not only does it give you an immediate shipment of the unit, it lets you train them for the rest of the game too. Yeah, because there's sort of a bit of back and forth controversy if they were going to let us continually get Gatling camels for certain civs, and it looks like yeah, they essentially allowed you to do that pretty much for Saudi Arabians, Persians, and Uzbeks. Afghans being the only outlier there. So enjoy your Gatling camels, kids. As far as natives is concerned, you do get the Agid, the Wahhabi Agid. It's a tribal Bedouin raider mounted on horseback, good against civilians and buildings. So these guys, they get a very, very long spear, very long lance. So they can hit units pretty far away from melee. So that's essentially how you use them, pretty much. You take advantage of that long range of their spears so you don't have to run as far to hit an enemy unit. So, yeah, it's a pretty devastating thing to have, honestly. Just saying. And then you get some mercenaries as well. You got the Shamari Dabit. Assault cavalry from Jamal Shamar has a charge attack. So it's basically a mercenary Forsan or Faris. You got an H3 as well. You got the Najd Agayel. Bodyguard cavalry from Nejd. Good against other shock units. So it's like a mercenary Jamal. And then you get a combined mercenary card for an H4, the Arabian Mercenary Army. And then you get a higher Iraqi Budo shipment. So you get some Bedouin horsemen from Iraq in this one. Good against assault units and artillery. And then mercenary loyalty, you get that. I don't really think you want this because there's so few mercenary options here, honestly. Just saying. Yeah. Royal Court. So you get the Ottomans and you get the Egyptians. So the Egyptians give you Fedahin, and then the Ottomans give you Delhis. The Fedahin, as you know, pretty trashy unit, not that good. So I would kind of say ignore these, at least for most situations, because essentially if you want like a raider scout unit, you already get the Ghazi that does that. You don't need Fedahin for that. I think the Delhis at least are a substantial Hussar type scout unit that you could use. They obviously started out with some good HP stats, and then they pick up really good in Imperial Age when they get the big boy upgrades. So, yeah, basically with this, you start with 6, then it goes to 8 in Age 3, and then in Age 4 it goes to 11, and then you get +1 for each courtier, so you could potentially get up to 14 in Age 4, which is quite good. For the Fedahin, it would be essentially 16 of them. So, yeah. I honestly think they should give you bigger stacks of these Fedahin because of how weak they are, personally. But that's just me. You do get some Trucial Corsairs here as well. And then you get a Varvag, which essentially gives you a battleship garrison with 9 Marines in it. Quite good for naval stuff. Now that we're done with the cards, we'll look at the stuff in the game so we can go over it together. It's quite a bit of fun stuff here, so get ready. Get ready, children. It's going to be great. Okay, so this is our friend here, the Bedouin. He's our mounted guy here. So he does multiple things. He gives us 10 population. It's 20. He can make our herdables. He can make our goats. He can actually research selective breeding to fatten them up faster. Notice the little ring around the goat means that he's being fattened up more in the presence of the Bedouin. And he also researches our late game capital technologies too, as well. So he's a capital, a house, and a livestock pen, and a raiding cavalry at all in one. He's the most flexible man in history with the most potential uses. So that's pretty good. And notice at your citadel, you also get free Bedouins over time as well, which is pretty good. And then you can also train Bedouins from the citadel directly as well to recover the numbers of the ones that you lost here. So yeah, pretty much that. As far as everything else, you also start the game with an Oasis Prospector, and you use that to set up an Oasis right here. It does have to be built right next to the citadel though, so just be aware of that. You can't build it somewhere in the middle of the map. It has to be right next to this guy. More often than not, you should place them right at the angle of the citadel, like at this geometric area right here. So like at the edge of the square, put one right there. So when you have to build your second one, you can put it at a safe angle around here. So actually, it looks like you can put them around here as well. Yeah, see the little red circle here that says, okay, you can't build them right next to each other. So yeah, you need to have a bit of space. So I recommend sticking it at the end like that, so you can put this one over here or potentially down here. Just like with any structure, you can build dates with the oasis. It'll give you some food. And then later on, you can build coffee bushes as well to get the coin one. It's basically that. So here's our nice army of Bedouins here. Nice stack of good raiders. Stack these guys up and then you'll be able to do some great stuff pretty much. And now we got Madrasa caravan here. This is our first caravan. We can also build a souk. It's basically our market. We can build a temple caravan. And then we can build a hookah lounge too. So we can get all sorts of stuff here basically. Right now, the madrasa just looks like the library caravan of the Egyptians, which is totally fine. The souk just looks like the spice stall one that we got with the Egyptians. Pretty cool looking one because you can see all the little spices and stuff in there. Here's the temple one, by the way. Look at this guy. Look at his little green. Look at the little camel with this little green thing on his hump there. Isn't that nice? I like that one. This is one of the new ones that they designed here. Looks pretty cute, doesn't it? Little camel with this little green thing on him. And then this is the hookah lounge one here. Basically using the market caravan one right now with some wood, food, and everything, and whatever. So, looking at madrasa texts, as I said before, madrasa texts have an immediate effect and a late game effect. So, for the red ones, they give you mushadins. And the late game effect is that the mushadins gain a 5% HP boost. So mostly only matters if you like emergency units. I'd say it's probably the most negligible one of them, pretty much. I think the most important one you're going to get is the yellow madrasa text, like a Shayer structure here. Mainly because these ones will give you free Bedouins and increases the build limit of the Bedouins as well, so you can have more of them, which is quite nice. Yeah, that's basically what you want to use there, yeah. And then the blue madrasa text focuses on giving you free mutawin and increases caravan plus wagon movement speed by 5%. So if you get all your blue madrasa text, then essentially all these caravans move around at 30% more speed, which is quite nice because it allows them to reach the battlefield a lot faster, and it allows them to retreat a lot faster too in case of emergency. So that's pretty good. Once we get to age 2, then we'll be able to build some more stuff. So I'll show you what the other caravans look like. And by the way, this is our friend the Mutawin. So he's our early game skirmisher. So he's like a Strelet, very weak, but his multipliers are based off of an early skirm instead of a regular skirm. So what does that mean? His multipliers against muskets is only 1.25 instead of 2. His maneuver ones are likewise that. His HP is only 75. His range attack's only 8. His hand attack's 3. He's like Garbo. Hot Garbo. But the thing is, he only costs 30 food and 20 wood. He's very cheap to afford. You should never have a problem affording these guys. You can always train them. If you train too few of them is the only problem. If you keep training them, you should be okay with most infantry situations, but you got to keep them in big numbers. Ideally, you should have like multiple gunsmith caravans just to deal with that. As a result, you can also build forge caravans here. You can build foundry ones as well, and then you can build a royal court caravan as well. So all sorts of caravans. All right, so this is what a gunsmith looks like. This right here. Currently, it's used in the cantonment caravan design of the Egyptians. Pretty good look. These are what the forge ones look like here. So we'll just move those over here except for one. That one over here. Very good. And these are the foundry ones. So using the palace caravan assets. Funnily enough, it does use the Saudi Arabian flag on there with the scimitar on it, which is pretty neat. And that's something it always had even when it was part of the Egyptian civ too, which is kind of funny. And this is the royal court caravan here. So you got two camels carrying this little object here, pretty much, which is pretty nice. I always thought it looked like the Ark of the Covenant personally, so yeah. Let's just go to Imperial Age now and research everything so we can see what the units look like late game, or unique units that is.
هيئة اللواءات تحرك وقت مضاعف.
نعم حاضر.
استعداد سماع الأوامر. إعداد وتحرك.
Alright, so let's look at the Mutaween first by getting a gunsmith here. And we'll just upgrade him till he gets to Imperial Age stats so we can look at how good he is in the long run. So we got veteran. Guard. And then Imperial. Yeah, these guys look pretty neat. I mean, look at them. Look at the design on them. They got a lot of colors to them, man. They're very cool looking. Essentially. And then if we make the Jamals, these are the Jamals here. That's what the Jamals look like. So they're basically like a camel lancer. They basically look like Mutaween, but on top of a camel. And if we upgrade them all the way, they look like this. So pretty similar to these guys, just with a couple key differences there in their appearance. And then we can make the Ilkhan here. Here is the Ilkhan. The spot. We just make sure they got all the Imperial upgrades. Yeah, so basically Saudi Arabians, all their units, once they get their late game stats, kind of look a little similar, just with differences in their garb, basically. So yeah. So this is what a Jamal looks like stats-wise without any sort of card upgrades or lance improvements, pretty much. So it's 40 hand attack, 2x against cav, 500 or so HP, 590 HP. So basically just a mounted pikeman. And obviously with the +4 range add-on to them with that card I told you about, they become really deadly. Then you add the combat cards to them and they become even more ferocious. Same thing with these Mutaween. They start out with just 16 range and 16 range attack. Obviously you can get close to 20 and then give them like 18 range with Theory of Mael, and then they become a little bit better. And then these are the Ilklan. So the Ilklan have a range attack of about 22 and then multipliers about 3.5x against shock units. So pretty solid unit all around, I would say. Especially in larger numbers, if you get like 100, 200 of these, then they become really efficient at combat roles. Alright, we're done with all the military unit stuff for now, so let's just look at some other things. Yeah, very good. Let's actually look at the royal court stuff here. Where are you, Royal Court? Here you are. So these are the options we get for the Royal Court with the Saudi Arabians. So we can go with the domestic rulers here, like Ibn Abdul Wahhab, Suleiman bin Abdullah al Sheikh, and then Ibn Saudi. And these guys, what they'll do is you get one caravan of each of the three military buildings. So yeah, with this one will give you a forge and a gunsmith, and this one will give you a forge. So technically, if you don't want to pay food at the beginning for a forge caravan, you could actually just get this. And what the Saudis end up doing is they improve your caravan hit points by 10%, and then they'll also boost the shipment numbers for your Ilkhan and your Jamalun, essentially. So all your camel cavalry. So if you like camel cavalry and you want your caravans to not die as hard, then just get these. Do note that these caravans for the Saudi Arabians, these are not as sturdy as the ones for the Egyptians. So they're just like a regular proto unit. So if you do get attacked by like a couple of hussars or something, they'll slice this thing apart in mere seconds. So just be aware of that so they don't turn the ribbons, basically. So going to the other two, we got the what looks to be the Egyptian options, or the Ottoman ones actually. So we get Abdullah bin Ali al-Rashid, Muhammad bin Abdullah al-Rashid, and Abdulaziz bin Mutaib al-Rashid. And essentially, these guys, what they do is they make servants train 10% faster, hence related to their Ottoman free villager thing going on, so that makes a bit of sense. And they'll boost the numbers of the delis that you get. And the Egyptian courtiers make found and spawn bushes and trees faster and increase the amount of Egyptian units, so your Featherhin. Basically, they'll boost the, they'll speed up the time it takes for your oases to make more date and coffee bushes. So you kind of get to choose between tankier caravans, faster training villagers, and faster spawning bushes. So mostly economical and infrastructure based, as you see. Yeah, so yeah. I think I'll just go with the Ottomans. We can ship into those. Very good. Delhi's right here. So yeah, that's the Saudi Arabians, folks. A lot of cool stuff there, basically. The only thing you really need to know about is the caravan functionality, and you should be good with them, pretty much. You can move these caravans anywhere you want, so you can stick them right under somebody's town center if you want to and be a total nuisance. You can actually do that, so yeah, just be aware of that. And also keep in mind your oral poetry and your caravan raid do benefit your Bedouins as well. Then, of course, this card boosts the HP around each other so they become even more sturdy then, up to almost 1,000 HP, which is great. So yeah, very nice. And it looks like each oasis can make Mushadeen emergency batches as well, which is pretty good. So yeah, there we are. Let's have some fun, shall we? I'm gonna take a quick family picture with all the units, and then we can get ready and attack our enemy.
بالشك بمنت على كما ترغب بمنت على الفور نعم بمنتهى السرعة هيئة اللواءات فارس ثبات إلي إيقاف سريع بلاغ عن الفارس العادي طاعة إيقاف إعداد ثبات إعداد ثبات.
Just trying to get the whole family together for a family photo that we can do later, which is cool. And then I'll set up a big army and battle the enemy to show you how good Saudi units are.
بناء.
جامعة، ما هي أوامرك؟
حملة الرماح الفارس العادي. الفارس العادي. إيقاف سريع. الفارس العادي. يا رجال. ثبات. إلي يا رجال. أجل أجل. إلى الأمام. وقت مضاعف. إلى وقت تحركوا. إلى وقت مضاعف. تحركوا. وقت مضاعف. إلى الأمام. Emrin, haydi evet. Tamam. Evet. Tamam. Evet. Haydi tamamdır. Emrin. Emrin. Evet. Hazır. إيقاف سريع.
I'm sorry I destroyed your town center. Well, no, not really.
ما هي محكمة بالشكل على الفور. كما على الفور كما ترغب بدون مزيد من التأخير. نعم فورا. بالشكل الذي يسر.
Alright, let's fight this guy finally. I guess they still didn't fix the bedouin bug here yet, because the build limit, if you train him from the citadel, still keeps him at 0 or whatever, so that's pretty funny. Yeah, let's just make his base smell so bad like camel that he quits.
another town center. I could use some more practice destroying.
Literally fighting tanks and machine guns right now with a bunch of camels. Insane.
سأفعل ذلك بناءة.
Ah, GG, Mr. Frederick the Great. Wasn't so great that you had the smell of that many camels, but good try anyways. That's the last upcoming civilization in the Age of Empires 3 Wars of Liberty Middle East update. You may see an upload from me next talking about maps, perhaps, and natives, but that'll be down the road when those become available to me. For now, that's everything I got for this wonderful patch that you'll get to enjoy sometime this year, hopefully. So thank you for following the ride with me. I'm signing off now. See you the next time if I got any maps and natives to go over next.